把我们中国的女孩子都拐跑了。
武少打仗就用这个东西，
是吧？
抹松。
Soviet Air Volunteer Martyrs Tomb. Good morning, folks, from sunny but brisk Wuhan. We are here on Qing Ming Festival, which is a holiday. I think it's translated as like Tomb Sweeping Day, which is the day you're supposed to go and see the graves of your ancestors and remember those that came before you. What we are going to do is kind of related to that. We're going to head out to a site of a former airfield, a military airfield, which was prominently used during the Second World War by both the Chinese and the Japanese. Now, the airfield we're going to actually doesn't exist as an airfield anymore, but we're going to go see what does that site look like now. First stop is a quick trip on the subway. I think it's 5 or 6 stops from here, and then we will head either on bus or on foot to the site of the airfield and then see what we can find in terms of memorial stuff. Let's go. 称50。
还61。
好，谢谢。We're here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 stops. Well, I can't see the name of that place we're going on that little map, so I guess it's not within the immediate vicinity of the subway station. 3.6. The bus is cheaper. 哎，你好，来一瓶阿萨姆吧。
好，
这是王家墩吧？
对。
王家墩原来是机场吗？
原来是机场。是
吧？
哎，对。
然后
改进了。
我想去看一下那个原来的机场的位置，因为
那都开发了。
是吧？
对。
现在都是
建了房子。
建了房子。
对。你是哪个国家的？
我新西兰的。
你的中文说的蛮好的嘞。
我学了好几年的。学
了好几年。
对。在
中国留学好多年了，是吧？
我原来在这边工作啊。
可以。
我老婆是武汉的，所以回来探亲嘛。
哦。你现在在新西兰吗？
现在是新西兰。对。
你把我们中国的女孩子都拐跑了。
那个机场原来是空军的吧？不是。
原来是民用机场。
原来是民用机场。
对。
那原来的机场就在这一块吗？
原来机场那蛮大的，就是这个前面呢，在商务区黄家墩商务区呢，这一块都是的。
这一块。
但是建的房子多得不得了，那一块全部是的。
你是武汉的？
我不是。
你是哪里的？
我老家安徽的。
安徽哦，那你干嘛来武汉呢？
我从小在武汉，我跟你一样，我老婆也是武汉人。
那你有孩子吧？
我孙子都1年级了。
不会吧？
真的。
哦。
我比你大很多。
哦。
你是80后？
我83年的。
是不是？
我69年的。哦。那这个地方肯定发展了很多吧？
这个地方发展的蛮好的，
是吧？
你可以去看一下。那
对，我准备去看看。我有5年都没回来，我上次是18年。
大3年疫情，你回来干嘛？
对，因为疫情回不了了。
是的。对，
真的回不了了。
新西兰疫情应该还好吧？
因为我们是岛国，我们开始的时候就关闭了，
是的，
不让任何人来。
对。武汉搞的，去年放开了就好了。是吧？放开了就好。
那你疫情的时候店怎么办呢？
我店子都关了。
关了。
19年关了，2022都没关。但3开3不开。
那怎么赚钱呢？
没办法呀，对不对？
对。好吧，那我去看一下，谢谢。
好，你慢走。
Well, that guy's really nice. He tells me that the place I was planning on going to is not actually the place the airport used to be. The airport used to be over there, where all those high-rises are. Remember that building we saw the other day? The one we couldn't go up that wasn't finished? What's it there? You can see it a bit better when it's not as rainy. So yeah, we'll go have a look over that way where the airport used to be. And yeah, then we're gonna head to one of the local memorials, which I guess celebrates, remembers the service of some of those soldiers and airmen, air crews. I have no idea what that is, but we are gonna go have a look. Is that like an underpass? It was raining the last 2 days and the water is still there. It hasn't been raining all day today. I can't help but wonder if they've gotten a bit stricter on beggars, because in these places, previously when I used to live here, all along here would be people selling knickknacks, people begging, but right now there's not a soul. This airfield, whether it's here or somewhere else nearby before they knocked it down, was a pretty important location in terms of some of the events that happened in the late 1930s in China's war against Japan. Now, the Chinese Air Force had a hell of a time with the Japanese because the Japanese just had much more modern aircraft. The Chinese Air Force at that time was a real mixed bag of obsolete planes, not kind of standardized models, and they were up against it, basically getting pretty dominated. A lot of their planes were shot down. However, the Chinese weren't alone. They actually had some help. You might be thinking Flying Tigers. That was a famous group of American volunteers with the kind of shark mouths painted on their planes. Those guys came to help out, but that wasn't until the 1940s. In the 1930s, the main help China was getting militarily was from Stalin and the Soviet Union. Now, when you think Stalin, you're probably not thinking generous kind of guy who's going to help out a fellow country in need, but he had his own reasons for wanting to keep the Japanese occupied in China. Essentially, with Japan having occupied Manchuria in the north of China, Japan shared a border with the Soviet Union, and Stalin was not too keen on having to fight a war against Japan, so he wanted to keep Japan occupied. Thus, he was happy to support the Chinese government. And at that time, remember, this is not the Chinese Communist government, this is the nationalists. So there was a group of pilots called the Soviet Volunteer Group, mechanics, pilots, crew, all these guys, bombers and fighters, who came to China to serve in the fight against Japan. They helped train the Chinese pilots and they helped on combat missions as well. Many of them lost their lives in the fight against the Japanese, but at least they had kind of more modern equipment which was able to go more toe-to-toe with the Japanese planes. Now, as much as China hasn't forgotten or forgiven the Japanese for their war on China and the atrocities, they haven't also forgotten the help that the Soviets provided. So let's now head on over to this park. It's called the Fang Park, which is Liberation Park. If you're wondering, liberation, is it liberation from the Japanese? No, liberation means that's when the communists won. They liberated the country from the oppression of the corrupt nationalist government. So yeah, we're gonna go to Liberation Park, and apparently at Liberation Park there is a memorial to these Soviet pilots who essentially gave their lives fighting somebody else's war. Oh, 没错啊。哦。好，谢谢。Almost trying to get away with a free ride. Well, off the bus. I got told off because my card didn't scan the first time. I wasn't trying to get a free ride, but here's the park. I have been here before, definitely been here before, and I vaguely remember where this Soviet memorial is, but it's been more than 5 years, so we might have to ask somebody or just go exploring. It seems pretty busy, lots of kids out because it's a holiday. Also, every time I've been to this park in the past, I've come in a different entrance, so I have no idea where I am. We are, yeah, just gonna have to go for a walk. Okay, that's helpful. Soviet Union Air Force Volunteers Martyrs Tomb. 850 meters that way. There you go. Signage, A+. From what I know about Chinese parks, they're generally a popular place for the elderly to hang out, do dancing and other activities. But because today is a public holiday, there's kids everywhere. Come to the park. Free day out. I think I'm starting to get my bearings. This place feels vaguely familiar. Close. We're close. I can feel it. One thing I will say about the Chinese elderly is they're not sat at home watching TV in a retirement village. They are either looking after the grandkids, dancing, playing instruments, doing something to keep healthy. That's good. We should do more of that. Almost there.
很少一去。不是手续。你在武汉干嘛？你游玩？旅游。
探亲。
探亲。
哎。
哎。
因为
手续。
我老婆是武汉人，所以我们这个月回来探亲。
哦。对。你是武汉的旅系。
对。
坐下来，坐下来。古时候打仗就用这个东西，
是吧？
过去打仗，
对，
打仗干仗，
嗯。
上法师好，
或者它是这样的，以后
太极宗师看过没有？
快点就我就放过来。说走路，
打枪，
厉害。你们是天天过来玩这个吗？
天天玩，
是吧？锻炼身体。
欢迎你来玩，
是吧？
欢迎来做朋友。
做朋友可以，我做这个肯定不行。
练太极。
对对对。
练太极。
这个对身体好。These guys are doing like Chinese martial arts for exercise.
在公安局。
这是你？
这是我。年轻，
原来是警察
，50多是警察，叫我退休了，
退休了
，70多了，
你70多了
，70多，
不会吧？
哎，70多，
我爸是50年的，他就有那个拐杖。
哦呦，你爸大我2岁。
哦，你52年的。
52年，属龙的。
是吧？属龙的，
好，
合个影吧。
没有问题，
来的，你跟我照一张，好高，你要2米几啊？1.94，1.94，不止吧？肯定他妈有。快点！那我只能这样。
哎，帅哥，
好，谢谢。
我说的蛮好的。
听得懂，可以沟通。
你的话基本上跟武汉话的是武汉话为根据。
普通话我会一些，武汉话更难一些。我岳父岳母他们讲的武汉话，
就是你的普通话也跟武汉话
有点像吧，有点味道。
好，我给你照一个。
行，好。
哎，是不是？照一个，快照着！你快照！
模仿，
别说得好，模仿。好，回去可以，谢谢。
你发给我吧。好像这边有个苏联什么？
去了没有？
没有去。
这，对，
就在那附近。
哎，
我等一下去看看。
200米远。
200米啊，
将近300米远吧。
好，行，
不到300米远。
我去看一下。Well, that's pretty cool. Just met a martial arts master. He's doing his martial arts for exercise. Retired policeman, and yeah, we took some photos. They've invited me to come back and learn some kung fu. I don't think I will be back to learn kung fu, but he's told me the Soviet memorial thing is just over here, a couple of 100 meters. So let's go have a look. Oh, I can see it, and it's surrounded by people. It's like a choir. Doing some choir practice over there, so we might have to just kind of get in the way a little bit. I'm not sure what they're doing. That's the monument. Yeah, this part I remember. It used to be always people playing badminton here. There's a big Soviet star. It says, if I can read it, Soviet Air Volunteer Martyrs Tomb. It looks like the tomb's got a date on it, 1956. So that's erected long after the war. This is after the Chinese Civil War. So China's Civil War ends 1949. These Soviet guys left China in probably 1941. When the Germans invaded the Soviet Union, they were all recalled. But they were mostly active here in the 1930s. Wow, I am impressed how many people are coming to pay homage to these martyrs. But it really makes sense because today is China's like holiday for remembering your ancestors and remembering the dead. So yeah, it makes complete sense. People are laying flowers for all these foreign martyrs that died, all these Soviet martyrs. Vasily Vasilyevich, Vladimir Ivanovich, Ivan Nikiforovich, I don't know. My Russian doesn't have any ability at all. I'm just going about what's been translated there for me, but yeah. Right, this thing gives a bit more information as to why this tomb is dated to 1956. Originally, these guys were buried somewhere else, but they moved them here in 1956. Guy just took my photos. Right, people have started taking my photos of me taking photos of this place. So maybe it's time to move on, but that's pretty cool. I definitely came on the right day because, as that poster alluded to, Qing Ming Festival is the day where they remember these guys. So yeah, very, very moving. The placard over there talks about these Soviet volunteers who came to help fight Japanese fascism, the blood of the Chinese and the Soviets being united, the workers' spirit, all that kind of good stuff. I could have sworn online I saw a picture of like a hall, not just the tomb. That's the tomb where we just were, but this says there's a Soviet Air Volunteer Group hall. So we need to get here. Now this spot is if you are looking to find a match. If you're looking for a girl who's 1.6 meters tall, 105 jin, which is, you have that for kilos, has a salary of 5,000 kwai, come contact the matchmaker. You might find yourself a match. It's always the parents that organize this stuff for the kids who are unmarried. I think it has to be this building over here. Surely. It looks closed though. What is it with me and closed buildings in China? Whoa! There we go. There, folks, is our replica Polikarpov I-16 Soviet fighter, which took on the Japanese over the skies of China. There's a sign in there which says no photography, so I might have a look and then see what is in there. That is the memorial hall for our Soviet volunteer airmen and martyrs. Inside, you can't take any photos. There's enough security cameras in there to watch an entire city full of people, so I didn't risk busting out my own camera. But there's a lot of people in there. There's a lot of history about how over 3,000 Soviet airmen served, and then all the names of the ones who died. The ones at the tomb we just visited was the 14 guys who died here in Wuhan. There's a whole wall. It's a long list of names of all the guys who died in the service of the Soviet volunteer group while based here in China generally. So yeah, it may be a long time ago, and it may be a story not really known outside of, I guess, the former Soviet Union and of China, but certainly the Chinese people haven't forgotten their sacrifice. All right, folks, I'll talk to you again. So the place we're going to is a tomb. 往这边走。
你要不加个微信，加个微信，我把截图发给你。哎。
Oh yes. Jackpot, baby.